Welcome to the Candle Business Coach podcast. I'm your host, Kirsty Allen, and I am the Candle Business Coach. I'm also a mum of three and a kindness advocator. This podcast is all about making and selling candles, business development, and mindset, delivered to you with advice, inspiration, and motivation in a new episode every Friday. This episode is proudly sponsored by Aussie Insurance. When you start your candle making business, it's important to set the right foundations in place. Aussie Insurance have created a specialised policy for candle makers which includes public and product liability insurance. They are the only insurance company I recommend for candle makers because they pride themselves on delivering insurance differently. Aussie are an online company and their passion is all about educating and supporting small businesses with the tools you need to grow and succeed along your journey. Visit aussie.com, spelled AUZI.com, to learn how the team can help you with all your insurance needs for your candle business. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend. Today we have the beautiful Kathy Edwards, who is a gut health coach, to talk to us about, well, a few different things, so I don't want to spoil the surprise. So, Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us how you got started with your journey?
Hi there, and thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here. So my journey started a very long time ago when my middle son was just a couple of years old, and he was really struggling with chronic ear, nose and throat problems. And back in the day, and I'm talking 40 odd years ago, so it's a long time ago, and I live in rural New South Wales. So yes, we had a local doctor who kept putting him on antibiotics, but he did have, because it would develop to asthma, he would have to go to hospital, and that would be usually on the weekend, and there were no doctors and so on and so forth. So I decided that I needed to work out how to help him quickly, which set me off on a path of studying natural therapies. So I then spent 12 years and got a degree in naturopathy, and then worked as life coaching and health coaching. And now that's all culminated into now being a specialist in gut health, because that's where my issues lie.
Interesting. I'm sure we could go on a completely different segue and talk about all the things, that's going on for you. But I'll keep it on track. I'll keep it on topic. Can you tell us about why you're so passionate about helping other people overcome their challenges?
It just really does light me up to see people move from struggling with something, and gut health is at the core of it, from my belief, to a point where their life really changes when they're not burdened by that particular problem anymore. And because gut health there's so much we can do ourselves to change it. Some things we're born with, it's genetics, you have to learn to live with them, those sorts of things. But gut health is really controlled by a lot of things that we do. So we have a lot of control over it.
Isn't that fascinating that we might think that if we're inflicted with something, that's just the way it always has to be. But when we become more educated and we increase our self-awareness and our self-knowledge, we then realise that there are ways to improve our lives in a myriad of different ways.
Exactly. Yes, that's right. And look, we're all born with a set of genetics. Whether they manifest or not is completely another story. Lifestyle factors will influence that, and many other things will influence whether those genetic predispositions do manifest.
For those that don't know, can you explain what gut health actually is and why it's important?
Within our digestive system, which starts at the mouth, ends at the anus, there's a whole complex system that goes on in the process of digesting our food, absorbing out nutrients, and then eliminating waste. But it's much more complex than that simple science that we learnt in probably the first year of high school. Within our gut, we have, within each section, there's a whole bunch of things that go on. Like, for example, in the stomach, you've got the liver deliver things like bile to break down certain things, and then you've got the pancreas deliver other things. You've got all that stomach acid, etc. But the small intestine is where the magic really happens. So the small intestine is inhabited by a microbiome, which is flora, bacteria, yeasts, and different things, and there's billions of them. absolutely billions of them. Many people will be familiar with the acidophilus, which goes into yogurt, for example. That's one. There's billions of them.
Wow.
In the small intestine. Now, the fascinating thing about those bacteria in the small intestine is that something like 90% of the serotonin happens in that area there. Now, serotonin's the brain chemical that makes you feel happy. So our mood is greatly affected. And by the same token, our mood will affect our gut. I'm sure many of the listeners are familiar with being really nervous or stressed and feeling ill, getting a sore tummy or whatever. And as a child, I'd have to run to the toilet when I got really stressed. And probably a lot of people would be familiar with that too. And so there's a back and forward story that happens between the gut and the brain. But it also affects our hormones, our mental clarity, our focus. And it's just such an important thing that we're really only beginning to understand a bit of.
I can imagine if, like, say, 20 years ago, wanted to explore this, there wouldn't have been as much research, there wouldn't have been as much knowledge or information out there. But as you say, the further through time and through life we go, the more information that we're able to learn about this, the more research, the more testing, the more data. So it's just so fascinating to think that there is this connection between our gut or our core and our overall health and our mind as well. So there's so much more to it than just the separate parts of our bodies, if that makes sense. It's all connected.
Yeah. Well, that's true holistic medicine, isn't it? As a naturopath, that's holistic. Nothing happens on its own. If it's going to happen in one area, it's going to affect everything in some way. But some things have greater impact than others, and the gut microbiome has a massive impact on our overall health, and it's where we can do the best work.
Oh, I love that. I'm sitting here just so fascinated because I think it's just so interesting that something that you're so passionate about is something that can benefit so many people, and not everyone would have the, I guess, awareness to be mindful of something like this. And when it comes to, say, like our mental well-being and our emotional health, that's all connected into our gut health as well. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And, I spoke to one of my dear friends, and she said to me, "Oh, look, I don't really have gut issues. And I love her dearly, but she suffers very badly from anxiety and she gets quite miserable. So, yes, there is something going on there. We need to address the gut. Yes, she's got a lot of stress, and that needs to be addressed too, of course, because, as I said, it's a two-way street. It's not just one direction. But definitely with the simple application of really specific probiotics, we can get that gut bacteria back in there that will help with the mood.
If you could tell me, like, how does the diet, like the actual foods that we consume, how does that play into the overall well-being of our bodies?
Well, it does affect our whole body, of course. We'll just take one of the particular bacterias, and like when I first started working as a naturopath 40-odd years ago, this was the big thing, like this was sort of the limit of our understanding. So it's probably a good place to start. And that is the candida. So that's an overgrowth of the yeast in the gut. So that candida is a yeast. So yeast feeds on sugar, right? So when you consume sugar, you feed candida. And candida is not a friendly bacteria. It's a very harmful bacteria that produces a lot of toxic waste. And then that toxic waste can end up in our bloodstream, which causes brain fog and really poor health. It really does affect the immune system. Now, I wrote an article on my blog just last week about a healing crisis, and I touched on what happens when you starve out the candida. So you cut out the sugars and starve out that candida, and you get a big die-off. And you can feel really quite unwell as it dies off and as your body eliminates it. You can feel pretty like you've got a head full of cotton wool and headachy and quite tired as your body's working hard to eliminate those wastes. It's a good thing. It's not fun to go through, but it's a good thing once you've been through it. And the way to help that is to drink lots of water.
How long would that normally take?
So a healing crisis is usually 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
It may linger on for 36 hours on rare occasions, and depending on how toxic the person is, as to how dramatic that can be. But it is actually a good thing. And what I used to say to my clients, I don't have clinic anymore, but what I would say to them is, drink more water. And it's like, but I have to go to the toilet all the time. I need to be forever peeing. Just consider it peeing your way to health.
Well, you've got to get the toxins out somehow, right?
That's right. It's either you pee them out or they come out through your skin or your breath. They're going to come out somewhere.
Can you share with us some practical tips or habits that we can utilise on a daily basis to have better health?
Okay, so water, definitely drinking enough water is definitely key. I think if you can start each day with a glass of water with the juice of half a lemon in it. That's a wonderful way. That sets up the gut, sets up the digestion, gets the acid into the stomach. And a lot of people will be aware of the acid alkaline and how we need our body our bloodstream to be in this homeostasis, which is the balance. But most people have a very acid system, and that can lead to things like long-term, takes a long time, osteoporosis, for example. Now, calcium and magnesium are they're alkaline minerals, but to maintain the homeostasis, to keep the balance right, if the body is too acid, it will drag out those important minerals because the bones can wait. But if we go into acidosis, it's 24 to 48 hours and you're snuffing it out. So water will help alkalise the system. Now, while lemon is acid in the stomach, when it's broken down and into your bloodstream, it's alkalising. So that's a beautiful way to start the day. Just by doing that, just one thing, it can change your life.
Oh, wow. Something as simple as changing a small habit in the morning.
First thing in the morning, instead of having a coffee or a tea, which are both very acid forming, to have some lemon juice in water. A big glass of water.
Does it need to be cold water or warm water, or does it matter?
No, however you like it.
However you like it. Perfect.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that it's such a simple and practical tip that we can use in our day to really set up a good day for us, for our health and our gut health.
And then, of course, that continues on by, focusing on whole foods and avoiding those foods that are known triggers to you. And, it's, food sensitivity and food allergy and all those irritable bowel type symptoms and things are very, very common. And, of course, that is all tied back to the immune system. So when the immune system's under attack by overloading of toxins from candida even, the body will go into the immune system will go into like an overdrive and start reacting to foods that should normally be healthy. So the only real way to resolve that is to avoid them and challenge test them and those type of things. So there's a whole protocol around finding what's causing problems. And look, most people are pretty aware of the things that are causing problems to them. Some of them are tricky. Things like gluten, for example, a lot of people have a little confusion around that one. They only eat it occasionally is often a thing I hear. But if you've got a gluten sensitivity, occasionally is not going to be okay, because gluten is one of those things that it takes such a long time to break down, and it remains in the bloodstream for something like 30 or 40 days. So your body's on high alert for that long. But also the gluten sensitivity, it's not celiac. Celiac is something different. But the gluten sensitivity is that your body is unable to break down the gluten. And so what happens is the gluten becomes like glue. So it will line the intestinal wall, and then you can't absorb nutrients. The villi don't work anymore. So often people who are iron deficient, the first thing you need to do is look what's going on with the gluten for them.
I was thinking back to when we connected and why we both thought it would be great to have you on the podcast. And that is because many of the listeners I have, yes, they're candle makers, but they're also mums, and we're busy parents, so we're busy business owners, and there's so much going on that sometimes as mums and as business owners, our health can take a back seat until it doesn't, and it presents other issues that we then need to prioritize. But in terms of, staying on top of our to-do lists and getting all the things done and being the best parents that we can be and doing all of the things, how can we improve our energy? How can we become, I guess, more energetic, or is it about cutting back in other areas?
Look, I get that you're busy mums, and I'd certainly have been through that when my children were little. Not so much now, but my daughter is, she's a homeschool mum, and she's got 4 children, and two of them are high needs, or 3 of them are high needs. So I understand being busy, but I think the thing that busy mums can do is, and she has just discovered this, is you have to focus on yourself. Because if you don't look after yourself, if your wheels fall off, everything falls down.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to take care of yourself first. And what does that look like for you? For everyone, it will be different. But it's making it a priority. And it might mean getting up half an hour earlier to walk on a treadmill before the kids wake up, before the chaos erupts in the household. And, of course, keeping your nutritional levels at a good sustaining rate, of course, is important too. So avoiding all those convenient snack foods, and that may take a little preparation. It might mean meal planning. It might mean spending half a day preparing some meals that are easy on those really, really busy days when you don't have time. Mm-hmm. And just getting a step ahead of yourself so that you've got that. So it's like, what's for dinner tonight? Open the freezer. Oh, yes, that's right. We're having that thing that I froze on Sunday. So that sort of thing, I think, does help. But, of course, getting high-quality, nutrient-dense foods into your system and then prioritising that daily movement. It really only needs to be half an hour to change the way things are. And that won't be easy for a lot of times. But, you can make fun with the kids. They can do it too. They'd love it. Kids love to move.
Yes, that's right. So many times I've pulled out the yoga mat to do, like a half an hour session just on YouTube at home. And I'll have my daughter doing downward dog right next to me because she wants to be involved. And it's like, I guess, we're always teaching our kids, and sometimes we use words, and we're always modeling our behavior to our children. And if we're modeling, drinking water with lemon in the morning, or if we're drinking, consistently drinking water throughout the day, and the kids have seen us exercise or at least prioritize movement or going for a walk as a family, and keeping health and being healthy at the forefront of our lives, that instills in them good, good future outlook, good future prospects, because they're more likely to pick up on those habits because it's ingrained in them based on what they've seen as they've grown up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they do, they absorb so much. And if they see you being a self-sacrificing martyr to the family, that's what they'll do too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all they know. And we think that when we do that, we think that we're doing best by our family, but we can actually be causing more harm, not just physically, but definitely mentally as well.
Yeah. And look, the one thing that your family wants is they want you, and they want you to be healthy and happy too. So you owe it to them to take care of yourself. And I think prioritising your health and well-being is an important thing for everybody, and to understand that every time you say yes, because I find that often very busy people tend to take on more tasks. Right. So someone says, can you do that? Oh, yes. Can you do that? Okay. When really the thing to remember is, before saying yes to yet another thing, is to understand that, are you saying yes to them and no to yourself? And if it's a no to you, is it really the priority? Because the yes to you has to be the priority.
Do you think that gets easier the older we get, or just takes practice?
I think it takes practice.
And knowing that you're worthy of the priority, I think, is really important as well.
Yeah, I think it is a self-esteem thing for sure. Absolutely. And I have a couple of people that and I have one lady I've been coaching for years, and probably the biggest struggle we've had, and it's not been coaching all the time, but, over the years, is getting her to say no.
Oh, yeah.
It's simple. No's a complete sentence.
That's right. It is.
It's It's just no.
Yeah. No, it's
Don't have to say. And
that's
as
so true.
women, we're really bad at saying no.
That's true.
And so, I've had to get her to practice saying no, just to little things.
Yeah, to build up that muscle.
Build that muscle, build the no muscle. Because when you say no to somebody else, it's a yes to self.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's putting self at the priority.
Absolutely.
This episode is brought to you by the membership for candle makers, the Candle Makers Collective. Becoming a member gives you access to fortnightly online group Q&A coaching sessions to support you, monthly online workshops and trainings to help you grow your business, plus frequent expert guest speakers to inspire and teach you. You'll also have access to an ever-growing resource library with templates, guides, planners and ebooks. But my favourite aspect of the membership is our exclusive Facebook group for accountability, connection and support. So if you're looking to take your candle business to the next level and learn more about the membership for candle makers, click the link in the show notes for the Candle Makers Collective.
When it comes to, let's just chat about candles for a moment.
Yeah.
Candle design and marketing. We want to be creative. We need to have focus. We need to, be firing on all cylinders with our cognitive function and creative thinking. How does gut health influence, and this might be a hard question to answer, but how does gut health influence how our brains actually function when it comes to being creative?
I can talk from personal experience here because I'm an artist.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so I paint. So it's really important to have a lot of creative ideas and to be able to, I say I need room to create, and that's room, and it's room up here.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So I need room and room is my favourite expression. I need room and room. But to do that, you've got to have that mental clarity and you've got to have the focus. And when the gut rebalances and gets it, when you get the gut back in order, the things that open up to you and the way that the mind begins to work and the clarity of path becomes so clear. And I've got a friend who I recently had a walk on the beach with, and she works a lot she does a lot of spiritual stuff. So hers is all about rituals and getting the mind right. And my thing to her was, well, it can work from the gut as well. When you get the gut right, the mind will open. Mm-hmm. You work from the spiritual point of view first and work down, but you're still going to get the gut right.
Well, as you said earlier, it's about that two-way street.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yes, getting the gut right does, because a lot of the signs and symptoms, if you like, as we talked about before with the candida, as an example, is that mental fog, that lack of mental clarity, and feeling like you're walking around with your head in the clouds all the time because of the one of the things that happens with candida is we get this thing called leaky gut, which was probably the next thing that we learned about when we first discovered all this way back in times gone by. And leaky gut is where the bowel wall is a semi-permeable membrane. And I hope I'm not getting too technical. Tell me if I am.
No, that's good.
So a semi-permeable membrane is a membrane which will allow things to pass in one direction, but not back the other way. So, for example, the bowel wall will allow water to cross into the bloodstream, but it won't allow blood to go back into the bowel.
Makes sense.
In simple terms. Mm-hmm. Yep. But what happens with what they termed leaky gut way back in the old days is that the little holes, if you like, that would normally allow things like water to cross become a bit larger. So molecules that shouldn't be in the bloodstream end up in the bloodstream.
Wow.
So proteins that are not broken down into amino acids is one of the big problems. And when the proteins get into the bloodstream, they trigger the immune system, which triggers off all the allergies.
Interesting.
So I can't remember the question now. I've gotten sidetracked.
It was more about how gut health can influence our cognitive function.
Yes. So that's okay. Thank you. So when you've got things like that in the bloodstream, that creates a lot of toxins because the brain's very, uses a lot of oxygenated blood each day. It's a big consumer. So if you've got all that fog in your bloodstream, it's going to end up in your brain, which impairs the thinking.
And as you said before, it's all connected.
Creativity.
Yeah. And then when we're feeling less creative, we're less likely to take inspired action in our business, which means we're less likely to grow in our business, which means we're more likely to potentially pacify or soothe ourselves by jumping on social media and getting lost in the scroll or watching TV for hours. And it becomes this awful cycle where we don't feel good in our own heads because we're feeling cloudy, we're feeling foggy, and then we're not actually growing our business, which is the whole point of starting our business. We want to grow, we want to make something of it. So it's absolutely all connected. And when we can really get to the root cause of why things are the way they are, we can then increase our self-awareness and then make better decisions.
Yes, exactly. And then look, when you get all that cleared up, you might find that you need to learn something more about marketing, for example, or do a social media course or learn how to be on camera or something. There'll be something that will come up that will help you grow your business because you've got the clarity to recognize it. Our mind will only see things that we're focused on. So if we're focused on feeling pretty crap, it's hard to focus on something that's really going to trigger a real big difference in our business.
Yes, absolutely. So one thing that I'd love to get your thoughts on, particularly because candle makers are obviously exposed to like fragrance oils and different waxes, and that could be synthetic fragrance oils or essential oils. Are there any potential gut health issues that we need to be mindful of when we're actually making the candles?
Look, I think there's no real research on that, but of course the normal health and safety, working in well-ventilated spaces and those types of things that I'm sure that all your business owners are very aware of anyway. I think that specifically there's no real, you have to be aware because some of the products that are used are petrochemical based, some of the waxes, the paraffins and things will come from a petrochemical base. So you have to be aware of those toxic fumes and they will all have an effect. But I don't think there's any real research that specifically points towards gut health and making candles, which is
I wonder.
good.
Yeah. I wonder if in time there will be some research done around that and whether that will show an impact or whether I just wonder what it'll show.
Yes, well, science is ever evolving. So, there's always something that can come up for sure.
So, in a nutshell, can you give us the secret ingredients for a gut healthy diet when it comes to being a busy business owner or just a busy person?
I think start the day right with the lemon juice and water. Focus on whole foods. And if you are too busy to prepare whole foods daily, then start meal planning and prepping. Do a bit of plan ahead. And, a lot of your people, I think, go to fairs and shows and things like that. So, there's can be some interesting, tasty food at those things, but make sure you take it with you so that you know what you're eating. And so you don't spend all your profits on all that yummy stuff that everybody has too, of course.
That's so true.
Because a lot of the markets seem to be food fairs these days. But, plan ahead and plan your shopping. Have a shopping list that includes lots of fresh fruit and vegetables and whole foods, whole grains, and really limit the amount of sugars. You really want to cut back on the sugar. Avoid those energy drinks like the plague. I can't think of anything worse for health than those things.
Yeah, nothing good comes from those drinks.
No. They have more sugar than Coca-Cola, which is already beyond belief. And, even the artificial sweeteners, there's a lot of research coming out about the really big problems of the artificial sweeteners. So you're not avoiding it by switching over to these so-called diet ones. So just ditch them and drink water.
Yeah, with a bit of lemon in it.
Yes.
One thing we haven't touched on yet is sleep and the quality of sleep. How can we, I don't know, influence our gut health to have better sleep, or is it that our sleep can impact our gut health? How do you see that working?
I think sleep can be a habit, certainly can be a habit, and it can be interfered with by stress and worry. Like if somebody's worried, their mind's tick, 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 tick all night and they have trouble either going to sleep or trouble staying asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that when we get the gut in order, we are better at response rather than reaction, learning how to respond to situations and taking steps to resolve the issue rather than having a dramatic reaction to whatever's going on. I think that is a step in the right direction, and that's part of a personal development thing. But I think focus on habit, like go to bed at a certain time, get rid of the phones and things out of the room so that they're not around disturbing your sleep, those type of things. And have in the evenings things like lemon balm tea, like some herbal tea that is really calming. And lemon balm is a wonderful herb. It's very calming and relaxing and helps calm down that anxiety that's at constant levels when you're under a lot of stress, most definitely. It's one of those herbs that traditionally was used for people who are anxious. So, and it's, it can't hurt, safe for children. So just go for that. Have lemon balm tea in the evening. I think you can probably buy it. Melissa is its other name. You can probably buy it these days off the shelf. Grows really easily. So you can just grow it in the garden and go and pick it. So it just spreads like mint. It's lovely.
Does it smell like lemon as well?
Smells like lemon, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, gorgeous. So good.
So you can probably pick that up at the plant shop where they sell herbs, lemon balm or Melissa. Okay. Melissa are fishing pots, yeah.
I'll have to look into that. That's lovely. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a nice herb. Ginger, lemon and ginger, you can get tea that's lemon and ginger. So ginger's really calming for the gut. And the lemon is quite soothing as well. So that's another nice one that you could have in the evening as well.
Beautiful. And that will all help to hopefully get a better night's sleep, which means the next day you'll be able to function a little bit more smoother with a little less brain fog.
Less brain fog. Also, a good night's sleep is really beneficial for weight loss. So if you're struggling with weight, a good night's sleep's really important.
I suppose if you're sleeping, you're not eating. So you're not necessarily consuming more calories as well.
Well, what happens is if you don't sleep well, there's a brain chemical that's triggered that makes you think you're hungry, basically.
Oh, wow.
So the next day you're hungry more than normal because that brain chemical has been triggered due to the poor sleep.
Interesting. I feel like you're such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all these things. I'm just sitting here nodding and looking all starry-eyed because it's like, wow, this is really fascinating stuff.
Well, 40 years of study, like 40 years of brain absorption, it's all in there.
Do you have any tips for maintaining a balanced work-life routine?
Look, I find scheduling really, really important. So there's a schedule, prioritize. So prioritize things like this half an hour is for my self-care. I work on this between, I go to my job between those and those hours, or I get the housework done in that particular time. And I find that if you give yourself a specific time frame, that you'll get a lot more done. And also the same with scrolling. Schedule the time. Give yourself a 10-minute zone out at the end of the day or whatever, and then put the thing down and get on with whatever's important that needs to be done. Write a list and have a set of goals that you're working towards and break that down and have a 3-month plan for your goal, then break it down to 1 month and then weekly and then put it down to daily and make it priorities of the day. The priority of the day for me for the last 2 weeks has been I'm putting together a gut reset program. So the priority of the day was between 9 and 3 or 4, depends when the dog starts driving me mad for his afternoon walk. Like having a child.
True.
is to work on putting that certain parts of that together. Of course, that will continue for quite a few weeks yet. But anyway, it's I had certain things that I had decided that was the priority to get those particular segments done. Next week there'll be a different segment that I'll be working on.
Mm-hmm. So it's about, you say, prioritization, but also having the discipline and the focus and drive for wanting to achieve your goals and focusing on how to break down the tasks needed to actually get there.
Yeah. And look, some people need to have a coach in that, helping them, keeping them accountable, that type of thing. It certainly can be very, very, very helpful. Or if you can't afford a coach, a buddy, team up with somebody you can keep each other accountable. Look, if you're going to go for a walk each day, it's always fun to go for a walk with somebody, rather than, oh, I've got to go for a walk again by myself. But if you've got a mate that you're meeting down the road or something, you're more inclined to do it. So I think having somebody that holds you accountable, not just you, because being in business for yourself can be very solitary and it can be quite a challenge, and it takes a lot of initiative and courage to move forward with it. So I congratulate all your ladies and men, I suppose, as well, for taking on that challenge. So really well done. Not a lot of people have the courage to pursue it and to push through and get it done.
That's right. And so many listeners that are fans of the podcast are at different stages of their journey as well. Like some are just starting there, some are just in the hobby stage, some are, the startup business, some are getting huge orders that are helping to bring in a big income for their family and for their business. And it's so fascinating to think that we all have different journeys and we all have different experiences that we bring into our business, but we have that common goal of there is more that I want from life and I want to do it in a way that is on my terms. And to build a business and to be on the journey of growing a business is, like you say, something that not everyone does or has the courage to actually start.
And some people start and they fall into that trap of comparing their beginning with somebody else's more advanced journey, and that's a killer. You have to let that one go and just, focus on where you are and what it is you need to take the next step and move your business to that next stage or your hobby to that next stage, and don't compare to other people. It's about you. Absolutely. And your beautiful
Yeah, just put your blinkers on and just focus on your journey, because as long as you're progressing from the person that you were the day before or the week before, then you're making progress and then you're on that positive trajectory. Yeah. Kathy, is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners about gut health or overall health and well-being?
I have a page set up for some downloads that they can
share that.
Free downloads, and one of those is a meal plan for busy people, so that might be really helpful. And the other one is and they're both on the same page, so I'll put the links for that. And the other one is so tips for quick and easy relief for gut health issues. So
incredible.
Those times when you get struck with that ripping bellyache, you need something that's going to work fast.
Yeah. Kathy, we've come to one of my favourite parts of the podcast where I ask all my guests 3 questions, all relating to candles. Question number 1 is, what is your favourite candle fragrance?
Now, that's a really tough question. I was thinking about this and I thought, now I really love like sandalwood and patchouli, which are the wood-based things. But then I thought, no, I'm an aromatherapist too, so I've got a fair background in this. But then I thought, no, what I really like is those ones that are generally sea-based, the fresh, light sea-based type ones. And I think that they're quite lovely to just fill the room with that beautiful aroma, whereas the beautiful sandalwoods and patchoulis, which I adore because they probably relate back to my hippie era, are a bit heavy.
A bit more heavy. Probably better in like winter or the cooler days. Question number 2 is, what do you love about candles?
I love that they provide such a beautiful light and a beautiful ambience to wherever they are. So whether they be in a bathroom or on a dining table or or in around a ritual that you're doing or something like that. They're quite lovely to create that beautiful ambience for that. It's very different to having a light on, as I'm sure your listeners know.
Yes, definitely. And then the last question is, what is one piece of advice you'd like to give to candle makers during their journey?
One piece of advice. I think, to sum up pretty well what we've talked about, is to really prioritise self-care.
I love that.
Prioritise taking care of number one so that you can be the best mum or dad and the best business owner that you can be.
I love that. That's such a beautiful way to end this beautiful conversation. Thank you so much, Kathy, from the bottom of my heart, for being on the podcast today, sharing your wisdom and knowledge when it comes to gut health and overall well-being. I think it's one of those topics that, well, at least this episode is a good introduction to what gut health is all about. And I would encourage everyone to get in touch with Kathy and ask some questions and learn more about your journey and how your health can be improved by becoming more knowledgeable about these sorts of things. So, Kathy, we mentioned before that you've got some links that you want to share with the listeners, which I'll get off you later. But where else can we find you online? Do you have a website? Are you on any social media platforms?
Yes, I'm on most social media platforms. I'm probably most found on Facebook. So I have a group there called Bloat Free Bliss. And that's the core wellness hub for women. My social media handle is edwards.kathy. I don't know why they wouldn't give it to me the other way around. But we can put all the links for Instagram and Facebook there.
Yes.
I'm on LinkedIn too, but I certainly haven't managed to get anything happening over there. My website is called mysproutstudio.com and leancleanwell.com. So they're both there. So, yes, so that's where you find me. And we'll put all those links in the show notes.
Yes, we will. So that people the listeners can connect in with you and also give some feedback on today's episode, which we always love. So once again, thank you so much, Kathy, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kirsty, for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's lovely.
Thank you, my friend, for listening to this episode. Check out the show notes for all the links mentioned throughout the conversation, and please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're feeling inspired, I would love it if you would write a review for the podcast and give a 5-star rating. Thank you so much and have a beautiful day.